Blackballed. 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 Blackballed.
What is up, everybody? My name is James D. Fiore, and this is Blackballed. Part 2 tonight of my interview with an escapee, I don't know what else to call him, from the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. I just as an aside, I don't know, brethren, it just seems a little archaic. Also, it seems a little Jamaican in a good way. I had a Jamaican friend who used to call me brethren all the time. And I am combining this part 2 interview with another gentleman who is a key figure in this story. And I'm going to introduce both of them now. The escapee is Richard Marsh, and the man who wants to protect him is Nathan Jacobson. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Good evening.
I'm very good, thank you.
So, Richard, we left off the last time that we were talking was actually when I was surprised and found out the great news that you're going to be a dad again, and that you're still with a woman now who's your wife and who's everything that you need, and it's great and I love it. And where we had left off is kind of like right at the point where Nathan's story starts to come into the scene a little bit. David Wallace, the political fixer, and Nathan, we described a phone call that you guys were having with members of the Plymouth Brethren Church, with Gerald Shapur and Alan Hallman and one or two other people. And I'm going to start actually with Nathan today, because I want to hear it from a person who was there and what they were saying. I know you said this on the other podcast, but because it's Richard's story, I'd like to start there. What were you expecting with this phone call, if anything, and what came out of it?
Well, the phone call that you're referring to is a phone call that took place while people from the Brethren believed that we were, in fact, going to bring them Richard Marsh on a silver platter. So they were very open. They were very excited. As Richard discussed yesterday, they spent millions of dollars with a series of private investigators and other people to try to catch Richard. So they were all excited that this was going to be happening. Of course, it was misrepresented to me, or actually misrepresented to David, and then to me. David had come to me when he had been retained. It was just telling me a little bit about what was happening. When he was able to locate Richard, it was a matter of, well, how do you bag this person? And that's what he had come to me. The call that you're talking about, Hallman wasn't on that call. It was moderated by Gerald Shapur, along with David Wallace, and a number of members of the Plymouth Brethren Church.
Was that the Brad Mitchell? Was that Brad Mitchell that was on that call?
Brad Mitchell was one of them. A fellow by the name of Ditlock, who seems to run their organization in North America. One other person. It was a call that was moderated by Gerald Shapur. and it took a different end from that of Richard Marsh, because they thought they were going to be having Richard Marsh handed to them on a silver platter. When they didn't get Richard because they had misrepresented to David and myself that Richard was a wanted man, that there were warrants for his arrest, and I was going to simply use my relationships in police services to assist the police to arrest Richard. When I push Shapur on, look, nothing's going to, this was late after the call, when I pushed Shapur on the fact of I can't have Richard arrested unless I see the warrants, and I pass on the warrants to my friends in police services. Nobody's going to do anything without that. We wanted to do it in a legal fashion, and that's when Shapur finally admitted that there are in fact no arrest warrants for Richard. That they were hoping within a year to year and a half to get an arrest warrant for him in Saskatchewan, but they wanted us to nevertheless grab Richard, seize his computer and other personal things, and turn him over to people that they would be sending. And that's when the whole thing went completely off the end. That I made it clear I'm not in the kidnapping business. It's one thing to be able to help to have a supposed felon arrested, but when he opened up that wasn't true, that's when I turned to help Richard. The call that you're talking about, that was a Kafkaesque call, is suddenly on this call from discussing Richard on a brief basis. It came to their political, financial, whatever hate it is for the current Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau. Chipman had talked about the fact that he and his people were the ones behind the release of the story of Justin Trudeau having sexual relations with a student while teaching drama at a private school in Alberta. And then...
Sorry, can I just... You said Chipman. Did you mean Chipper?
No, it wasn't Chipper. Stillman?
Diplock. Was it Diplock?
No, it wasn't Diplock. It was the Canadian...
Brad Mitchell, that's right. It was Brad Mitchell that jumped in and talked about, he and his people being behind getting the story out about Trudeau and sexual relations with a student while a teacher at a private school in British Columbia.
I'm going to stop you there for a second, because I remember when and the story came out. I was actually the person that first mentioned the story on Twitter, and what I did was, because it came out in the Buffalo Chronicle, which is not really a newspaper. It's more like it's a fake newspaper. It really is. Like it is just filled with. If there's any truth in it, I haven't seen it. They might have classified ads. That might be true, but it is literally a vehicle to spread rumors. And I knew a bunch of reporters that had this story of Justin Trudeau coming up with a settlement agreement with a student that he had an affair with. And I was tired of hearing it. So I put out a tweet, and the tweet was like, "This is the rumor. There are reporters sitting on it, and make of that what you will." I said something like that. And then I followed that up with almost like a tweet expressing regret, because I was given that information weeks beforehand as well and I'm not blaming Stephen Harper for this, I'm just stating because it's factual, by two ex-Stephen Harper staffers who had both contacted me to tell me this story of this girl that Justin Trudeau allegedly had relations with. And I felt like I tweeted it, and then I saw it in the Buffalo Chronicle, and I saw it somewhere else, I think maybe I saw it first and then tweeted it. And then I was like, I just regretted doing it. I should have handled it a little bit differently. But I started to I contact the source who told me, the former Harper staffer. And I was like, what is this bullshit? Like, what is happening? And another one of her colleagues had contacted me and said, this is what they do. They, I didn't know where it started until now, but they will take a rumor and they will send it to loyalists and say, this is what I want you to spread. And the loyalists just do it. So, but that's just kind of an aside, but it's interesting to now know where it came from. I wish I knew that at the time, because David Wallace had actually mentioned that Warren Kinsella might have been involved, and Kinsella got in contact with the network and was like, that wasn't me. Right. So, I mean, and there's all these different types of rumors that go around like that. And it's interesting how someone felt comfortable enough to share with you that they had manufactured a rumor like that. And also, by the way, with all these with these two incriminating phone calls that I'm now hearing about, isn't it interesting that Gerald Shapur, or however you pronounce that guy's name, is never the guy to say the incriminating stuff. So he's the smart guy on the call all the time. But it almost feels like these guys are like, I can't tell if they're useful idiots for him, or if they are just the people that he's like, well, you're going to incriminate yourself. I'm not going to, but go ahead. Like, I can't figure out why a smart man is involved with people who don't seem that smart at all.
Well, I think what it was, and it's nothing more than my guessing, is they wanted to try to impress David and myself with their political strength, that they can do such a thing. And I remember at the time that rumor came out, there was a great belief that would destroy Justin Trudeau's campaign. The idea of a candidate for prime minister having sexual relations with an underage student goes against all morals, all accepted morals. And I think he was trying to show us that, he's got strength, he's got ability, etc. And then through Diplock, it switched to the insanity of wanting to retain us to get rid of Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, and that's actually something that I wanted to talk to you about again, because the interpretation of what it meant when it was like, take care of Justin Trudeau, my gut tells me that they weren't asking you to off him. They were asking you to have him removed from office.
I don't know. That's very possible that's all they meant. But remember, they're talking to a person who they believe, for right or for wrong, had been an agent of one of the top intelligence agencies in the world, and who had done what in the business is referred to as wet work. Wet work is when there's blood spilled. So I don't know the extent of what they were talking, because I never allowed it to go further.
Okay.
But
I just don't want to like our network to sort of be seen as like a Buffalo Chronicle. So I just want to state for the record that
again, nobody said we want to pay you to off Justin Trudeau. It was
right.
Get rid of Justin Trudeau, and one can interpret it however one wants to do it. And what
like if it was the mafia, I would say he's probably wanting to whack Justin Trudeau. But if it's a guy or an organization or a group of people who have already admitted responsibility for creating a false rumor in order to remove him from office, I'm leaning towards that kind of thing again. That's just me.
Anything is possible. But again, the only thing I'm going to say is, remember, they thought, for right or for wrong, that they were talking with a Mossad hitman.
Can I, Nathan, are you on a computer or your phone?
I'm on my iPad.
Is there anything else? Any apps open? Because you're staticky. When you're talking, I can hear static. I'm wondering if you have any other apps that are open. If you have headphones, maybe you can use those. So anything that will get rid of that static would be great.
I'm gonna close all other apps.
You know, you didn't want to call me shadow. You didn't want me to call you shadowy, and you just keep on disappearing into the shadows now, Nathan. So.
Okay, well, I'm closing.
I'm going to move to Richard while you figure out your stuff. So Richard.
Okay.
Yeah, Nathan, I got Richard going right now. Just when you come back, we'll figure it out. But
with no other open apps.
okay. We'll figure that out. So Richard, there is like you and Justin Trudeau have something in common. You know, the same group of people were asked to sort of, hey, we're going to have to take care of this guy. You know, like, can you help us take care of him? And again, the ambiguous language is, I guess, what you would use when you want to do something like that. Did you feel that your personal safety was ever in jeopardy, or did you think that they were going to threaten you? You know, what was your reaction when Richard and David approached you with this information?
Well, it seemed highly credible. I mean, David, I believe David was genuine in what he was reporting. In the call, David was saying he thought they wanted to kidnap me. Given what I learned later, I mean, I didn't know at the time exactly what I know now, but it does seem to be the only credible explanation. I mean, what else could they be doing? What else could they be wanting with me other than to do me some physical harm or to remove me completely? I just don't know. This is one of the biggest questions as to exactly what their intentions were. But one thing's for certain, there's no decent or legitimate or legal explanation for, what they were trying to do.
Yeah, it's amazing. Do you remember the first time you actually met Nathan and David?
Well, very much so. Yes, of course.
Can you describe that meeting? Because that, I mean, did you like the one where Nathan was there? Because I think you already told me about David, or maybe you met them both at the same time. I honestly don't recall. There are so many, by the way, ins and outs of this story that I get really confused sometimes when I'm trying to recall when did this happen? Who was on that call? You know, there was all these different things like that. And so tell me about the first time you met Nathan.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I met Nathan and David at the same time. Okay. I had, after the phone call and after I'd published the phone call and after everything hit the fan because the Brethren and Shapur and so on realized that David was trying to save my neck. David and I had several conversations, and Nathan called me and we had conversations. And then I think it was Nathan said, we'd like to meet with you. Would you be free to come and meet up with us? I was keen to do so, but there was just a little niggling doubt in the back of my mind. Is this, just a pretext to, maybe seize me, or, I thought it was good, but I took one or two precautions. Nathan offered to come and pick me up. I arranged a venue for him to meet with him, which wasn't my residence, so I didn't want him knowing exactly where I was at that point. And I also, just as a kind of a litmus test, I said to Nathan, my wife would like to come. Is that okay? Because I knew that, if you're planning to seize or kidnap or do something bad to someone, the last thing you need is a witness, and the last thing you need is the guy's wife there screaming her head. So I thought, if Nathan hesitates when I make that suggestion, I'm canceling the whole thing. So
yeah, I would. I have the perfect wife for that kind of encounter too, because she,
So I just dropped this. What if my wife comes? And they said, yeah, that's fine. There wasn't a single breath or heartbeat. So I knew at that point that there was, that just confirmed my feeling. There was no harm intended. There was nothing under the surface here. So yeah, so Nathan, Go on.
Someone was asking in there, what is it that you had on the church? And I know that you're not allowed to really be that specific. Can you give us the like elevator pitch version so that some people that are watching right now are up to speed?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are two aspects to that. One is, I suppose, actual dirt or information about sort of scandalous and criminal activity by brethren, mostly by brethren-owned businesses rather than specifically by the church as an organization, although the distinction between the two is very, very, very vague. So that was one. I mean, I had cost them millions just by exposing fraud, which then caused them to lose contracts and have to spend vast money on, damage limitation exercises. The other
wasn't the
thing
contract, just to cut you off, wasn't the contract like, it was worth like tens of millions of dollars, wasn't it? Or was it even more than that? It was a lot of money.
Pass.
Oh, okay, my bad. Sorry. Yeah.
And I can't comment on things.
Okay.
The other thing that infuriated them and I think provoked an irrational response was I was pursuing this path of trying to, as I said before, like the emperor has no clothes. I was using humor and extensive publication of memes along with other friends and helpers to try to reach out to teenagers in the church to make them realize that the whole Hails Emperor Hails thing was just ludicrous. It was stupid, to make them laugh at the guy and break the illusion, to pop the bubble that they were trapped in. And it was rather successful. We set up a site called PBCC Memes, and we put out, about 300 memes over the course of a year, most of which were kind of brethren insider humor. You can actually find them now. I've posted them all, or I posted the best of them onto Pinterest page.
Yeah.
Called Blaspheme the Prophet, I think I call it. And half of them won't mean anything to you because they're brethren inside humor, and some of the rest will. But that attracted a huge following in young people inside the PBCC who had illicit phones, non-brethren phones, and they were following along on this and sharing these memes virally inside the fellowship. And these memes were mostly taking the mick out of the MOG. And I think that's probably more than anything, more than the millions of dollars they were losing and wasting, that was what drove this, angry and irrational. Yeah.
You're right. I have no idea what that means, but I'm laughing.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Can you tell us what this means? Can you just tell us what this means?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of things in the brethren, there's the brethren and the world. The world is everything outside of the brethren. It's the wicked, evil world, and it's run by the devil. And so anything they don't want you to do, they say, well, that's of the world. We don't do sport because it's of the world. And so, and brethren are they're notoriously obese, heavy drinkers, particularly the kind of the more responsible men, the leading men. They like they're like a row of fat balloons on the front row of the church, because they literally do nothing. They don't exercise. They eat and they drink lots of whiskey and they go to a lot of business meetings and they talk. And so they're the inside the church in the sort of brethren patois, prominent male members of the brethren are called heavies, because usually they are.
So, I was sent, by the way, because I always have this idea that the leaders of cults, like David Miscavige from Scientology, like that Hales guy from Australia, that they don't believe what they sell to their flock. And I don't know if that's true or not, really, but I was sent something, and I'm just going to flip back to Shapur for a second. Gerald Shapur, he was the Conservative Party of Canada General Counsel. He is the general counsel for the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. And he was also in the Armageddon Factor, The Rise of Christian Nationalism in Canada, which is a book by Marcy McDonald. And she basically, like, he seems like a true believer, this guy. I always thought, seriously, that the religion was the tool that powerful, diabolical people used to try to get people who maybe were going through something and were weakened by something. And because I'm an atheist. I always think that, like, if I meet an alcoholic who's no longer an alcoholic, there's like an 80% chance that Jesus has taken the place of Jack Daniels. And that's fine. I don't care. Like, if that's how you got off the bottle, then that's a great decision. But it always seems to be when someone's in a weakened state or left in the dark somehow. But the Gerald Chapur thing really kind of makes me confused, because he's either really good at pretending he's a true believer or he is a true believer. I don't know, Nathan, if you have any insight on that at all.
James, the one thing that comes to mind is something that Richard brought up yesterday. And yeah, I've seen a lot of these religious and cult leaders that prey upon the weak, and are basically nothing less than snake oil salesmen, preaching whatever. It gets to their hubris, and they manage to steal huge amounts of money from people who believe in them. But when you take a look at what Richard said yesterday, the Pilgrim Brethren, or Plymouth Brethren, whatever they're called, are not a proselytizing church. They're not a church that goes out and tries to gather in from the weak. But everybody, or 99%, as Richard said yesterday, are born into it. So they aren't proselytizing. So that would, unless you break away from the church or question the church, it's made up of true believers. Is Chapur a true believer? If you look at the things that he's doing, one would think that he's using it both. He believes it, but when you look at the amount of money that is being run through the brethren companies, and I brought up yesterday how a company that was relabeled by Chapur and Holman from being a company called Hev Oil Tech suddenly became Equity Health Services, and managed to get a very, very high percentage of the Alberta government PPE, rapid testing, etc. So I think that Chapur, while he may be, and I don't doubt that he is a true believer. I'm told he's a Seventh-day Adventist, but he's also using his relationships in government to profiteer. A guy like Holman, I don't think he believes in anything other than himself, his ego, and his ability to get the next deal, or to do something squirrely.
Yeah, remember Michelle Bachmann? I think she was a Minnesota senator.
She was a Minnesota governor that ran for the presidency a couple elections ago.
And she, it turned out, was, and I didn't know this existed, but there's this overarching category of Christian called dominionists. And dominionists are almost always business people. And dominionists believe that if they own a factory that pollutes, that it's impossible that they will ever destroy the world by pollution, because God will take care of them because they're Christian dominionists. Which just to me sounds like a scam to do whatever the fuck you want to make money and to not have to answer to anybody. Can I ask you, Richard, do they talk openly about business in front of the flock?
Oh yeah, I mean they have huge business conferences. So you may be invited to a Bible reading or fellowship meeting, as they call it, or you may be invited to a Brethren business conference. It's all, the same thing.
But
So, yeah, go ahead.
James, what it seems to be happening is they're running it as a conglomerate, but they're being extreme right wing, and they use a percentage of the profits. One that it's sort of like a vicious circle. The businesses make money, have to turn over a large percentage of the profits to the church. The church then takes that money, buys political influence, and uses that political influence to gather more business. In Alberta, a number that I had sent to me today is that approximately 8 out of 10 of all contracts that in the area of PPE and testing in Alberta went to companies that were controlled by Shapur/Holman. So they use them. They're big donors, but they're being big donors buys them big favors.
Yeah, and that's it was a tricky thing to try to find, and I do have the receipts. I'm going to put them in an article tomorrow. I don't understand why that wasn't a bigger story. Like there was I mentioned it in a couple of Calgary publications, but when you take the guy has, I don't know. Am I just naive? Are there things that people are allowed to do that I don't think they should be allowed to do, but that's totally legal? Like, was it legal?
No, you're right in that these things in the country that we grew up in Canada, and I've been in a lot of corrupt countries around the world where there's lubrication, bakshish, whatever you want to call it.
Not shadowy, ladies and gentlemen. Not shadowy. Go ahead.
worldly, not shadowy.
Worldly. That's right.
What I don't expect it in our own Canada. Again, back to what we said yesterday or the day before. It's not in the Canada that we grew up in, but when you look at, for example, what I had the earliest tests available, and I was worried for my friend Jason of his economy shutting down. And I went and showed the next thing you know, a company that's registered to Shapur's office. It's registered by him and registered to his office as an oil tech company, suddenly changes its name to Equity Health Services, and within 100 days announces a major contract with the province of Alberta. And they did all or a large amount of the rapid tests and much of the other PPE. So there were hundreds of millions of dollars, I imagine, that went to companies that were controlled. And then again, you have at the exact same time, Holman, who is lobbying, is the premier's fixer on one hand, registered himself as a lobbyist for this Equity Health Services to lobby to the government. And his son is in a senior position advising the Minister of Health, who, by the way, happens to be a client of Gerald Shapur. Even though he's a lawyer himself, he was a lawyer in municipal affairs.
Is that legal? I just want to know if that's legal.
Not in my books. It's in my books. It's insider deal making. You complained today. Russia and the oligarchs and all that's all over the news. And so many people that I know that through all my years working in the former Soviet Union, who have had everything confiscated from them for their inside dealings with the governments. Is it any different? No. When you look at Shapur being the lawyer for the party bag man, the lawyer for the Brethren, Holman being the premier's fixer, suddenly changing a company that's purpose for one thing to something else that they got a whiff of. Well, here's a great business opportunity. And sadly, they did that because I presented to them a plan on how to help the province. suddenly through the sun, that these companies get, I was told, approximately 8 out of 10 of the contracts.
Yeah, it blows my mind. It
Why
blows my
isn't
mind.
the RCMP all over it?
I don't know. That's why I'm so frustrated. But I can easily imagine a situation where Kathleen Wynne has a lawyer and like, you know, a crazy secular organization that has you know, where her health minister has like a person working for them that's related to, you know, this crazy secular organization, and then gave that person a contract that's probably sole sourced or pretended to be open, but then they just gave it to them, and they would have a field day with it, and it would be national news, not just provincial. Why is the media that used to be considered a liberal slanted media so beholden and so afraid to talk about conservative scandals?
That's a real good question, because as a person who was on the inside in the Conservatives, it was always the Liberals concern. The Liberals run most of the media. Trudeau is giving out billions of dollars to all the newspapers, the CBC, etc. And the big complaint among the Conservatives is that you can't promote what you want to do because the media is I can't figure it out. And other friends of mine that are familiar with this can't figure out why the mainstream media, which is everybody alleges to be so right wing or so liberal controlled, hasn't picked up on it.
Yeah, it's a mystery to me. We're getting a little sidetracked, but that just makes me so angry. Now, okay, so once you two met each other, and as Nathan put it the other day, Nathan wanted to protect you. What happened after that? Like, how did if there was anything, how did Nathan start protecting you, or how did you guys start working together in order to like fight off this monster with all their religious tentacles?
Well, when we met at a restaurant in Barrie, Nathan took me in his very nice Range Rover. We went up to Barrie. We picked up David from his house. We stopped off at a restaurant that was maybe half a mile away. We were followed into the restaurant by a private investigator who spent the whole time we were in there watching us, and we ignored him. So it was David and Nathan and my wife and I, and we didn't say a lot. I guess they were just kind of trying to figure out who I was, and I was trying to figure out who they were. Nathan,
that must have been like a spy versus spy moment. You guys are both like, so.
I remember getting really angry.
I just wanted to let you know I carry guns. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I remember getting really upset about when I learned exactly what the church was doing to Richard, because here's this person with his beautiful wife who you can see they're just so in love with each other, and hearing what the church has done to him, and knowing that the church wanted him to be physically grabbed and turned over to whoever it was they were going to send for him. And it really angered me. And my attitude was, I'm not going to allow this to happen. And together we took some action. We took some pictures together, and I sent it off to Diplock and Shapur and these other people in Holman, saying nothing is going to happen to Richard. He is now under my protection. You've got to come through me to get to him, and you're not going to get to him. And I'm going to be sending him to Israel, where you can never reach him.
Did that actually happen?
No, Nathan offered it to me, but I wasn't really in a position. I mean, with my wife's immigration situation and so on, it it wasn't really practical for us to leave Canada at that
I mean,
point.
Nathan, and I'm not trying to say he's shadowy. He could have got you and your wife in, I'm pretty sure, though.
I'm quite
Without
sure
a
he
doubt.
could. Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. But I mean, just the fact that he had sent this message to the brethren rendered it unnecessary to take that further physical step, because they knew the game was up at that point. And I'm pretty sure at that point they went straight over into damage limitation mode. I mean, they knew they were never going to get me at that point, and they knew that if they did get me, obviously Nathan and David would both report to the police and say, look, if Richard Marsh has been hurt or has disappeared, these are the perpetrators. So
they're also like, it was ballsy, if not stupid, for the church, and by extension Gerald Shapur, to try to hire you guys to basically hand over another citizen who did nothing wrong to that organization. That is just ballsy to the nth degree. But the flip, hold on one second, because I want to say, though, because the flip, when they experience the flip of like, oh shit, the guy that we just asked to basically kidnap this person is now working against us. That doesn't happen to this organization, from what I can tell.
No, I certainly became an enemy to them, and they then did their best through some devious means to try to destroy David.
Yeah. And David, for you, did you know who Nathan was? Because you're from the UK. Did you know who Nathan was when you met him, or did you have any idea?
Well, of course, when he called me, I Googled him and found out who he was. Yeah, so by the time we actually physically met, I knew who he was. But
I was joking.
He wasn't. I hadn't heard of him prior to his contacting me, for sure.
I don't remember if it was yesterday on the podcast or on the phone, but I find it amazing that because if someone were to come up with two characters that one person would meet to have their back, you found the two most unique characters I think I could have chosen. They would both be in my top 5 for people to be. Well, that's a crazy character. Let's hook them up with that person. But
which I think is why they came to us in the beginning. Look, they came to David in the beginning, and in fact, when I first met Hallman in Jason Kenney's condo in Edmonton, Hallman let me know, oh, we have a mutual friend, David Wallace, and you should know David has done some amazing work for us.
Yeah, and David is David is another character who's political fixer and everything, and to be and he sounds like he had a crisis of conscience in this situation.
He really did, and it has hurt him. It's hurt him and his family both financially, because they moved him out to Alberta under false pretenses and basically hung him out to dry there. And were it not for, they took him out of his marketplace with a wife, 2 young children, and 2 aged parents, with the promise of providing him with lots of work. And he arrived. It cost him a lot of money, as you can imagine, to move one's household from Ontario to Alberta. The former Attorney General, the one that had that party,
Jonathan
arranged and rented the house for David. And once he got there, they basically told him to get stuffed. So he was and still is in a jam that we got to get him back to Ontario.
Okay. Since I watched the Breaking Brethren, the television show, I think it was directed by Alex McIntosh and aired on City TV, that you were in, Richard.
Yep.
I was not surprised, because I kind of knew what I was about to watch. I don't know what it's like to be a completely different person for one half of your life and then a different person on the other half of your life. Do you remember being a true believer as an adult, or was there always a sort of little nagging thing in the back of your mind that was like, this is bullshit?
No, I remember when I was 11 or 12 having doubts about the thing. I mean, it's, the age where you kind of start thinking about a bunch of existential stuff, and I got to a point where I was having doubts, and then I realized the consequences of having doubts, and it kind of drove me into kind of abandoning any of those line of thoughts, because if my doubts were proved correct, the consequences for me would be so horrendous that it was best not to even think about it. So after that one period of questioning at that relatively young age, I never questioned the whole church thing again until I was in my 30s. Really, I think it started when my children got to their teens and they started to get into trouble, and you started to see the way it's, mistreated them, and that's when I started to question whether the whole system was in fact the truth. They use this term, the truth. That was when the doubt started to creep in. But when you start to doubt in the church, you can see this is wrong and that is wrong, and you blame maybe your local congregation members, local congregation leaders, or even leaders at the national level. But what you don't question is the kind of perfect infallibility of the bog, of Bruce Hales himself. You sort of say to yourself, well, if only Mr. So-and-so, the local priest, had really listened to Bruce Hales, then he wouldn't have screwed this up. So
Yeah.
So what you have this theory that grows inside you that, the church is corrupted, but it's like a sort of rising damp that creeps up from the bottom, and at the top it's all pure and beautiful. And then the bombshell is when you realize that actually the corruption all comes from the top, and the further down you get in the hierarchy, the better people actually are.
Yeah. And I'm not going to dwell on this one point, but like a lot of religious groups, I'll talk about the Catholic religion because I was raised as a Catholic. I used to enjoy lying during my confession and then confessing those lies the next time I went to confession because I thought that was fun. But sexual abuse of children is rampant in a lot of religions, especially Catholicism. I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm not even going to ask you a question on this, but there are stories about this church as well where that kind of stuff is taking place as well, and it just boggles the mind that sometimes that religious organizations who are supposed to represent morals and ethics and decency are often the very place where you will find most of this kind of heinous behavior, manipulation and sexual abuse, and in your case, a possible attempted kidnapping or threats or whatever, where all of the moral instincts that they seem to want to embody and their flock embody just completely goes out the window. And it is the greatest cover for criminals.
Exactly, it's the perfect cover, and it's do what I say, don't do what I do. I mean, everything that they impress and impose on everything else is, they break all the rules themselves.
Yeah. So Nathan, did you have to do much after that phone call where you were like, "Hey, you're gonna leave my man alone or what? Because I'm gonna fuck him."
I think they had their come to Jesus moment, and I think they realized that they had bitten off more than they could chew. That the playing field had changed, and that they had better move on. Again, this is also after my blasting them when they came across their preposterous proposal to get rid of the prime minister. I don't think they want to tangle with us. I'm sure Holman had heard from the premier from Kenny, who knew the relationships that I had within Israel, within the intelligence and security community. He'd seen that. And by the way, one of the articles that you folks had published was that I had brought Jason to Israel, which isn't in fact the case. I like things to be accurate. Jason was always there as a minister of Her Majesty's government, as a minister of Prime Minister Harper's government. I never brought him over, but when he was there, I used my relations both as loyal Canadian, loyal conservative, and loyal and connected Israeli to be able to do the best to strengthen the relation. So, and Jason knows the organizations that Israel has, and he knows at least of my connection to them. Let's not call it a participant. So I think it would have scared the shit out of Holman, and Holman would have related to Shapur.
We touched on that a little bit the last time about how the conservatives used to hook up with evangelical groups and Jewish groups get along because evangelical groups don't include I hate Jews as part of their overall stance. Whereas your group, your ex-group, I should say, sorry about that, the Plymouth Brethren, they seem to be more cut from the white supremacist cloth. And I'm just going to play a video here because for some reason racism sounds worse when it has an accent. I don't know why. Whether it's a Texas accent or an Australian accent, it just sounds worse. So I'm going to play a quick video here.
Get out of here, I'll boot the whole thing over.
Four Corners set out to uncover that story, but it wasn't easy. The Brethren wouldn't be interviewed, and their attitude to being filmed is hostile, as we discovered when we were quietly filming in a public Perth street.
We just realised that you're a camera crew, so we're just giving you crap. Okay. So who called you up here? Who called you up here? You opposers?
Are you supporters?
Supporters of what?
Hey, just by the way, I'll just warn you in 5 minutes, if you don't get off...
Have you got a fear of the government of God?
Are you believers? You're threatening us? We are not threatening you.
Are you believers?
We are not threatening you. You are threatening us. No, we're not threatening you.
Yes, you are. What are you doing here, you poor cunt?
Yes, you are. Do you believe in God? Do you believe in God?
Get a real job.
Yes, I do. I do believe in God.
Waste your fuel, mate. Poor cunts.
The Brethren's leaders wouldn't appear on this programme, nor would they allow any families within the church to be filmed or interviewed.
You know, the first thing that I think of when I think of someone who wants to walk alongside Jesus is Jesus approving the usage of the phrase, "you poor cunts." Because I can't think of anything else that's more Christ-like than calling people cunts for asking questions.
I looked at it and I thought it was an Australian version of Deliverance.
Yeah, that's true. How would you squeal with an Australian accent? No, I'm just kidding. It is amazing to me. It's not really amazing. I mean, it's just, what is Christ like about that? Is that so? Anyways, I watched. Have you guys ever seen The Family, the documentary on Netflix? It's about this group that basically when you're done university, you go and all live with a bunch of guys, and it's like a frat house, but the frat house doesn't have any booze, it doesn't have any drugs, you don't watch TV, you don't do anything, and they have a Bible, and the Bible just says Jesus, and it's only the gospel of like Mark, James, Matthew, and Luke, and it's just Jesus, and they all really love Jesus, and then they grow up and they become politicians who just lie all the time, like about everything that they can, because what they're trying to do is get the issues that they care about to be like things like Roe versus Wade being overturned, which honestly they were successful in doing. You should read The Power Worshippers. It's really all about that. If you believe that abortion is a bad thing, I don't have any problem with you. If you work the system in such a way where you manipulate, you commit fraud, you dance around tax exemption statuses and stuff like that in order to get your issue, then I got a problem.
But that's basically what we're the little bit that I've seen of what the Brethren is. And again, right. as I mentioned a couple days ago, until I had met Richard and heard his story, I had never heard about the Brethren in my life.
Neither have I. Even though they were the originators of that Justin Trudeau fake story with the student that got to me, I guess that was in 2019. That was the blackface election, I believe.
Yeah, and they're the same people that have Gerald Shapur as their general counsel, who's the general counsel for the Conservative Party, and who's the principal bagman, and at the same time is running insider deals.
Yeah, the whole thing is just like, it's a scandal. Like, it's a documentary series of scandals. Okay, so where is your court case now, Richard? Like, what is happening with that? Like you still can't say stuff. So I'm wondering, what is there a trial date? Like, what's going on with that?
No, there's no outstanding court case. All it is that there is a court order which forbids me from saying anything about certain matters.
How long does that last for, that court order?
Well,
because I know the Scientologists, you have to sign a contract for like 1 billion years. You really do.
Yeah, no, it's longer than that. I mean, it actually doesn't have an expiry date, so it's
in perpetuity. You just can't ever talk.
Yeah.
People have that.
I mean, if I'm reincarnated as something else, whether that then bypasses the rule, I don't know. It probably hasn't been tested in court, but yeah, I mean, at least till I'm dead. I mean, after that, I don't know if the law applies to dead people. So,
you know what you should do as one of your last requests before you die is
I put it on my gravestone, couldn't I?
Yes, you could.
The whole thing like a really, really big gravestone.
A mausoleum. Fuck a gravestone. A mausoleum. You can walk in. You'll read it like hieroglyphs. The whole thing.
Yeah. That's a good
idea. A friend of mine sent me a picture of the best tombstone that carved into it was, "I told you I was sick."
You should put that on a t-shirt. By the way, we've had comments on your t-shirt, Nathan. Everyone seems to like. Can you show it again? It's Lebowski 2024. Is that so? That is hilarious.
And it also says below it, "This aggression will not stand man." One of the quotes of the Big Lebowski from the movie.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my God.
By the way, on that, the supporters of Lebowski actually registered a church for which I am a registered minister, and it's called Dudism.
Really?
Yes. You can go online, and you too can buy a diploma and a card that you can have in your wallet that you are a minister of the Church of Dudism.
What? Does it work? Like, you can marry people?
Haven't tried it yet.
I am down. I want to marry people. You know, I don't know why. I just want to be like, I just want to do it once or twice before I die. I see a happy ending with this for you, Richard. Not just because you have one of the most beautiful life partners I think I've ever seen. Seriously, well done. But also, and not just because you have a man like Nathan Jacobson sort of having your back with this. Your disposition. There is something about you that makes me totally confident in your future. You're funny. You're calm. You know, you seem to you got your eyes open as to what situation that you're in. I'm not saying there weren't dark times before this, but a lot of people would not be able to sort of have that composure that you seem to be living with today. And aside from the fact that I'm going to give a lot of that credit to your wife, like, are you moving forward? Are you as confident as I am in you in how your life is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, so many things have happened in the last 5 or 6 years, none of which I'd anticipated, and they were so dramatic and shocking that you're kind of waiting for the next shoe to drop. But I think, thanks to well, largely thanks to journalists, of which Alex McIntosh, of course, have to give him the credit for being the first one to really spill this story, and followed by yourself and Press Progress. I mean, this is where I've obtained vindication. This is where I've obtained justice. This is where I've got these monkeys off my back. No thanks to RCMP or law enforcement or the UK courts or the civil system. It's the media that's given me the peace I now enjoy. I mean, the vindication internally and the physical security of not having to look over my back, look over my shoulder the whole time.
And I liked Alex's documentary is great. I liked how he focused on like the human side of it. Nathan, I'm an award-winning documentary filmmaker. I'm not just saying that to brag. I'm saying, though, that there should be, and I'd be willing to do it, maybe we can partner on it or something, a documentary about that church that only focuses on the political and the corporatization of spirituality and the manipulation of a flock and the political connections and yada, yada, yada. If, I'm not trying to put you on this, well, I'm totally trying to put you on the spot. If you would like to, because I think it's a story worth telling.
It is worth telling. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stories that are worth telling. This came to my attention because Holman and Shapur had reached out to David Wallace, but there's so much wrong being done in the world, and we rely, as Richard said, on people like yourselves to be able to break it. They are worth doing on documentaries, but it could be an ongoing series of documentaries of movement after movement.
In perpetuity.
I remember being younger and reading about Jonestown and what happened there. And I remember I remember being approached in Amsterdam by a group of people who wanted myself and my colleague to come to a meeting with Reverend Moon from Korea, of these Moonies. So there's an endless amount of them.
I'm sorry, Moonies?
What shocked me is these people had the hubris to ask people like David and myself to kidnap Richard. They had the hubris to suggest that for money we would take out the Prime Minister of Canada. Their hubris is crazy. I don't see that from other churches, but then again, I don't have much experience.
Well, listen, the hubris comes from never being held accountable for doing lots and lots of nasty things. Like that, I mean, hubris doesn't just happen in a vacuum. Hubris happens because people get away with things.
Absolutely.
So, and they sized you up as a conservative, probably a true blue conservative who has a bio, not shadowy, but eclectic, right? And they probably
different from most of the kids in my neighborhood in Winnipeg growing up.
Right. You're a Winnipegger? That just fucking changes everything. Yeah.
That explains it.
Once a Winnipegger, always a Winnipegger too.
Always.
Yeah, but the thing is that that hubris again extends from being able to get away with things all the time. So, and I know people like that, and I have known people like that, where it's like, when you invite somebody else into that bubble that you've fashioned because you get away with things, and then that person, while they're in your bubble, takes a pin and goes like that, they don't know what to fucking do. Because they've never dealt with that before.
No different than you're being pulled over by some egotistical cop who uses his position to threaten you, to scare you. That
I dealt with
happens
that. I
so
dealt
much.
with that issue. I dealt with that issue by never getting my driver's license, which is why my wife hates me. But go on.
But no, but there is so much bullying that's out there, and my experience with the Brethren is they're very egotistical bullies who believe that because of the money that they have and the political influence that their money has bought, that they can do things that a normal citizen would never ever dream of being able to do. To have the nerve to come to a person like me who they don't know who I am, what I am, other than having read some rumors and heard some stories about me, and think that I'm willing to take out a contract to get rid of the PM.
Can we all just look at the British man trying to get the Jamaican woman to come over and her not doing it?
Yeah. Their hubris is unbelievable. And it comes because of their money, of their being able to bully the membership of their church, to turn over the majority of the profits from their businesses, which are all basically owned by the church, and by political power. And when you've got a guy like Shapur as their bagman, whether he's a believer or not a believer, but using the money and the strength of the church to then generate other money, and then a guy like Holman, who I think just likes to be a bully and worships money.
Which is weird because he looks like a game show host.
Yeah, come on down.
Yeah, that's right.
But he has a great belief, a great amount of arrogance, and he believes his political connections will allow him to do things. And that just the issue of the fortunes that were spent on PPEs as an example of it.
Yeah, just to review that for a second, you had created a plan for Alberta to get them back to work by utilizing connections
Rapid
with manufacturers overseas and being able to do rapid testing. Which, by the way, Nathan and I found out that we have a friend in common, which is amazing. She's an ex of mine who remains a really good friend. And she told me a story today. You were playing ball in the backyard or something, and you pulled one of these tests out of your pocket and were telling her about it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. But anyways, long story short is that what would have been the difference? Here's a question. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. What would have been the difference of you utilizing your personal relationship with Jason Kenney to sort of get a contract in Alberta versus Shapur doing it?
First of all, I can probably honestly say the quality of the tests that they would have gotten. The second thing is the fact that I've told Jason that I never want to make profit on my relationship with him. So they would have paid a whole lot less. But I was when I sat with them at the time, the two large meat processing plants in Alberta were shut down because of COVID. And these plants have largely third world immigrants, Somalis, etc., that are running them, that are the workers in them, living in close quarters with a lot of people. I created a program where everybody gets tested. Everybody has to come to work with a bag with clothes for a week, and they get tested. And if they have COVID, then they've got to go home. If they don't have COVID, then they go to work. But instead of going home where they can be exposed, the companies will put them up in hotels in the area, and the industry can keep working. And it's not just a matter of testing, but it's a matter of creating a whole thing. By the way, an interesting point is our tests are sold all over the world, and now we have a much newer, unique test that's doesn't expose anybody to any liquid that might be exposed to the virus, and that's miles above. But we've never sold a test in Canada, and I think in one case it's because I'm viewed as a conservative, so one group doesn't want, and on the other, I don't play insider games of, you know, you get this, I get this, etc. But we've got the best test. We're going to see now, because we submitted the most advanced tests that exist to Health Canada, and we'll see now whether we get approved, and we can provide them to the Canadian public, and it's a whole lot less risky.
Do you know what would happen? This is how crazy everything is right now. They will find the clip of you telling me the story of taking Justin Trudeau because he was the offspring of a world leader, and they would run that clip over and over and over again to say that the personal relationship is an example of nepotism, and that's why it was bad that Justin Trudeau did that. That's how hypocritical.
You know what? They can try that, but then they're also going to have to include the other people that were in the Generation 2 group that we started, which is Kerry Kennedy, Christina Chavez, Naomi Tutu, Nadim Jamail, Hemi Paris, Dalia Rabin, King Abdallah. There's a big group. And if
you're like a rapper who just shouted out his crew. That was awesome.
Yeah, if they want to take work that I've done to try to make this world a little bit better, and my life, my daughter certainly changed my life for my worry about her world. If they want to take my philanthropic work and convert it to something nefarious, let them do it.
Yeah. Richard, you look like you're thinking about flowers and stuff. Are you? Were you unsuccessful in getting the half that props you up to come onto camera? Is that?
I'm working on that. I'm working on it.
Well, you have about 3 minutes. That's about it. I am going to wrap, only because I think that what we've covered, it's a lot for people. Like even when I read about all this stuff, the church and Shapur and the Alberta government and the UK situation, it is a book. It is not a podcast episode. I did a 2-parter. We could do like 8 parts, really, and I'm hoping that we do 1 or 2 more at least, just because I want to hone in on some of this stuff. But I'm going to pretend that I'm a really shitty television host, and I'm going to say this. Richard, what's next for you? Can't even do it as a joke. It's awful.
A life of happiness, I hope, for him.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I've got a job that I really enjoy doing, which is working outside all day in the agricultural sector.
Yeah, I can see your farmer's tan. Your bicep is really white and pasty, and then you got a little tan.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're welcoming a child to the household.
Yes.
My wife has 2 children from previous relationships, who we hope will be joining us in the next year or 2 as we can sort out the immigration issues. So I'm just going to quietly settle down, be a family man, keep doing my agriculture thing. Put my feet up. No, realistically, I will still be spending a lot of time trying to help other ex-brethren to bring out their stories and to get some justice and some vindication. There are some that I'm working with at the moment. But who knows what the future brings? I mean, the past 5 years have brought so many radical surprises and changes that to say, yes, I'm going to settle down quietly now would be what Nathan would call hubris, I think.
Yes, that's true. And Nathan, how about yourself? I have no idea what you do. My friend Kelly described you as a jeans and t-shirt kind of guy, and really likable, and a great neighbor. But what are you doing nowadays? Like, I haven't ever asked you that before.
Well, back to doing business. The war in Eastern Europe has affected me because I've been involved in doing various businesses in the former Soviet Union for the last 33 years now. I'm back. There's going to be a lot of work in rebuilding Ukraine. I spend a lot of my time helping groups that are in trouble. So the upcoming trip is going to be to Ukraine, to Iraq, possibly into Syria, and then hopefully a week relaxing in my home in Cyprus. But I want to keep busy, and if I have the ability to combine community service with business, that's terrific. Community service takes up a great amount of my time.
Yeah, I imagine it does. Well, listen, I'm happy that I met both of you guys. I'm gonna definitely stay in touch. I personally am going to release from the Klondike Papers as many stories as I can about the Brethren, the Plymouth. I fucking hate their name. Okay, I just do. It's a car. It's a Jamaican slang term for brother, and they squished them together, and we're supposed to accept that shit.
But they remember what Chrysler did. They canceled the Plymouth.
That's right. I am Chrysler, everybody. I think
that's right. They're going to change their name to the Dodge Brethren.
Yeah. Yes. Because they'll be dodging all of my articles or something. I don't know.
Or the Plymouth Brethren Chrysler Church, possibly. Because they're not Christian.
How about the Lada Bastards Christian Church? You know, instead of brethren, we'll call them bastards. I don't know. Listen, I have a really hard time with religion as it is. So when I see religious groups being nefarious people, it does bother me. I may not have the resources of Nathan. But I would still like to consider myself an ally of yours, Richard. And I will be speaking with both of you guys in the near future, I'm sure. So thank you to Richard Marsh and to Nathan Jacobson for joining me today. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
James, thank you very much.
Thank you. That was a good show. If you guys were tuning in to see Dean interview these gentlemen with me, I can't find him. I'm hoping he didn't get kidnapped by the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. I'm not suggesting that they would ever do such a thing like that, but he has disappeared. Seems like his phone might be off. I'm just saying, if you see Dean Blundell, please tell him to check in. Monday. Yeah, tomorrow. Jesus Christ, is it already Sunday? Tomorrow I'm going to have Michael Geist on the show. Michael Geist is going to talk to us about the Orwellian Bill C-11 and the just as Orwellian Bill C-18, and we're gonna have a nice chat. And then on Tuesday, I have Mark Wahlberg's best friend. And the only reason I say that is because rather than be someone who ran from that, and at the same time also didn't try to bank off of being Mark Wahlberg's best friend, he's legit Mark Wahlberg's best friend. I've called him in the past, and he's been chilling at Mark's house, and I'm just talking to Ross Phil, and he just happens to have a really famous friend. But he's also an actor, and he's also an entrepreneur, and so we'll have him on the show on Tuesday. So I'm going to leave you with the Michael Geist preview, and then actually I didn't even load it. Fuck it. I'll just leave you with my old video. Okay, guys. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you tomorrow on Blackballed.
Thank you for having me. Look, journalism is dead. We'd all rather take selfies now than learn to comprehend. Look, I despise those colorblind, those self-absorbed reporters, those whores who suck the content for all the media hoarders. Those producers, man, they tap dance for the conglomerate's quarters. They exploit polarization, and it's done through gender, race, and borders. And meanwhile, they sell us fear, meds, and weapons every hour, leading bleeding screeds of misdeeds, but shit, none involving power. Those outlets, they insist they don't exist for shit clicks. Fuck, man, them pricks, they diss this writer like I was on some mysterious hit list. And the cable news, that's the villain. And I don't want to be mainstream. That's where fake dreams hit snakes and devils all up on the inseam. Know what I mean? A leg up into the armpit of all that corruption. Shit, this relationship, I think it's destined for a mutual destruction. Terror, mayhem. Nah, I know, I'll cool it with them J's. But you better send your fucking eagle and meet the talons of this goddamn osprey. Why? I've been blackballed before. Now I have to be my main source, looking out my front door, 'cause I've been blackballed, but now I am older. I know I have to keep on moving forward, never look over my shoulder. We live inside a landscape where editors are predators and writers get shelved and never properly mentored. Never cease to increase the pressure of the mighty pen's releases. I defeat your fucking arsenal with a single chess piece. Bless me, the non-believer. Fuck commies and libertarians and conservatives, liberals, anarchists and Presbyterians. Fuck left-wingers, right-wingers, throat singers, salesmen, the hacks who got rocked by that mentally impaired kid. I hate all of you. Find the button, press play. Abort the next generation, spare us from the next wave. And let's not blur the lines of yesterday. Just vibrate to your streetwise psilocybin sensei. It's true though, whether it's Trump or Justin Trudeau. New clothes for those who lie straight-faced, and kudos to faith-based race baiters. You guilty, shameful haters. Pull the plug, your crossfader is filthy. You milk these new breeds of dummies who promote racism and then cry to their mummies. MAGA, woke folks fight to a mutual death, and no one's left to foster divisions after the last breath. Now fucking die already. Seriously. Oh, but wait, one more thing. Bring your newspapers in case we all run out of confetti. I've been blackballed before. Now I have to be my main source, looking out my front door, 'cause I've been blackballed, but now I am older. I know I have to keep on moving forward, never look over my shoulder. I've been blackballed.
Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed.